Prologue, Before the First Identity. From the book Transcending the Human Story, a series of sacred unveilings. You were never the story. You were the silence before it began. Before the body, the name, the memory, or the blood, there was you. Not the you shaped by time, but the presence that entered it. You came through the veil, not to become someone, but to remember everything. And then to remember what you are beyond it all. This series is not a ladder of improvement. It is a spiral of return. Each chapter is a shedding. Each unveiling is not a teaching, but a truth you once knew. Chapter 1. The story was never you. You will remember that the identities you carried, daughter, lover, sinner, healer, were never who you were. You were the space beneath them, the awareness behind the mask. This first unveiling will dissolve the spell of story and invite you to stand as the one who sees. Chapter 2, The Localized Field. You will discover that you are not merely a soul in a body, but the quantum field localized into awareness. You are the wave collapsed into a vessel, not to suffer, but to experience. This chapter reveals the sacred mechanics of incarnation, not as punishment, but as presence. Chapter 3, The Birth of Identity. You will walk through how pure awareness began to identify with the vessel, the trauma, the culture. The moment the field began to say, I am this, you will see the making of the false self, not with blame, but with compassion. Chapter 4, The Programmed Self. You will confront the architecture of distortion, the conditioning of poverty, shame, gender, religion, and obedience. You will no longer see these as personal flaws, but as systems built around the sleeping field. And you will begin to unplug. Chapter 5, The Spirit and the Story. You will enter the ancient debate. Is spirit the soul? Is it awareness? Is it memory? You will untangle the layers between essence and narrative, and begin to feel what spirit is when it is not explained, but lived. Chapter 6, Death is Expansion. You will meet death not as enemy, but as release. You will feel what happens when the localized field dissolves. You will realize death does not end you. It frees you from form. And in this freedom, you will no longer fear your own return. Chapter 7, The Return of the Witness. You will come to rest in the one who watches, no longer the one who reacts, heals, fixes, or seeks, but the one who is. This is the softest unveiling, the remembrance that there is nothing to do, only to be. Chapter 8, The Field Lives Through You. Now you will see that transcendence is not detachment. It is embodiment without illusion. It is not leaving the human story. It is walking it without forgetting who you are. In this final unveiling, you do not become more. You become clear. So this is not a series of answers. It is the undoing of every question that was born in forgetfulness. This is not about transcending the world. It is about transcending the lie that you were only a character within it. The human story was sacred, but you are not its product. You are its witness. You are its dissolver. You are the space where it ends. And this is the beginning. Tash up Chapter 1, The Story Was Never You. From the book Transcending the Human Story, a series of sacred unveilings. There comes a moment, quiet as breath, undeniable as gravity, when the story of being human begins to dissolve. Not because it was wrong, but because it has been completed. The costumes once worn with pride or shame begin to loosen. The roles, savior, seeker, sinner, success, no longer magnetize the soul. Not out of despair, but out of remembrance. Something ancient and infinite begins to stir, whispering not of improvement, but of return. To transcend the human story is not to reject it. It is to bless it, to walk its full arc until its pages no longer bind. It is not the flight of the ego into fantasy, but the quiet return of awareness into the field. It is the remembrance that we are not only the characters in the dream, we are the dreamer, the dream, and the silence from which both arise. This fourfold voice will walk through history, biology, thought, and spirit to unveil how transcendence unfolds, not as an escape, but as a sacred homecoming. History. The rise and repetition of the human narrative. From the earliest days, humans have lived through stories. Our ancestors marked their identity by tracing myths into the stars, painting animals onto the cave walls, and passing down ancestral legends that held memory and moral in one breath. The work of Joseph Campbell in The Hero with a Thousand Faces reminds us that these myths were not mere fantasies. They were blueprints for the inner and outer journey. We became the heroes of our time, struggling, rising, falling, redeeming. Over time, however, these stories hardened into roles. The mystic became the monk, the wild woman became the wife, the warrior became the citizen, and slowly the sacred story became a societal script. Repetition replaced revelation. Every generation retold the same loop: fear, division, war, salvation. We called it progress, but it was often a carousel disguised as a pilgrimage. To transcend the human story is not to burn the book, but to see it clearly. We begin to notice the ways history repeats, not because we are doomed, but because we are asleep. The archetypes taught us, but they are no longer needed when the soul remembers it is not an archetype, but awareness itself. The path of transcendence honors the myth, thanks the map, and lays it down. The story did not fail. It prepared the soul for its next becoming. Science beyond the body, biology, brain, and the illusion of fixity. Science once taught us that the body was a machine, the brain a command center, and identity a product of DNA and environment. But as deeper layers of reality revealed themselves, these ideas began to dissolve. In The Brain That Changes Itself, Norman Doidge, a psychiatrist and researcher, reveals that the mind is neuroplastic, rewiring itself continuously, making identity fluid rather than fixed. What we once called self is more like a pattern than a person. Epigenetics tells us that our genetic expressions shift in response to experience. Our ancestors' trauma does not define us, it imprints us, and we can rewrite it. Our biology, once seen as fate, is now seen as music, a score that responds to resonance. Quantum biology goes even further. In quantum healing, Deepak Chopra opens the door to seeing the body not just as a physical system, but as a field of information in dynamic exchange with consciousness. Matter dissolves into energy, and energy into awareness. You are not just in a body, the body is in you. The story of being human, written into muscles, synapses, cells, is real, but not final. Transcending it means seeing that biology is not your boundary. It is your canvas. The identity once anchored in matter becomes a wave. The self once clinging to flesh begins to dance in light. You become the field that breathes the form. The story loosens. Philosophy. From identity to infinity, thought as the bridge. Philosophy has always sought to answer the question, what am I? From Descartes' I think, therefore I am, to the existential cries of Camus and Sartre, we have tried to anchor identity in thought. Yet this led us deeper into anxiety than into peace. The burden of meaning became too heavy to carry. Being, as it turned out, could not be sustained by thought alone. In Being and Time, Martin Heidegger shifted the question from self-definition to being in the world. He revealed that we are not detached observers, but woven into experience. Thought is not the origin of self. It is one ripple in the sea of presence. Later philosophers like Foucault and Derrida began to unravel the structures of language, truth, and power, showing that much of what we call identity is socially constructed, not eternally true. The self began to crack under scrutiny. But this was not a collapse, it was an invitation. Eastern non-dual traditions had long pointed to this. The Ashtavakra Gita, translated in The Heart of Awareness by Thomas Byram, says, "You are not the body, you are not the mind. You are the witnessing awareness, timeless and still. Identity is not to be sculpted, but seen through. Thought cannot carry you beyond the story, but it can take you to the edge where the mind bows and silence begins. Transcendence is not philosophical. It is the moment philosophy dissolves into being. Spirit, the field beyond form. When the soul remembers, it was the storyteller. The spiritual traditions of the world begin with the story of the self and end with the surrender of it. At first, spirit gives the seeker a role: the wounded, the lost, the pilgrim, the chosen. But as the soul ripens, these names no longer suffice. Something deeper emerges, not needing salvation or title, but truth. In The Power of Now, Eckhart Tolle reminds us that awakening is not a doing, it is a remembering. The moment you become present, the past ceases to define you. You are no longer bound by narrative, lineage, or psychological time. The story ends, and presence begins. The Untethered Soul by Michael A. Singer unveils this truth with clarity. The self you've been defending is not who you are. You are the witness, the space, the awareness behind all inner narration. You are not your name, your trauma, your triumphs. You are what watches. This is echoed in The Wisdom of Energy Medicine by Donna Eden, who shows that healing does not come from fighting the form, but by restoring flow to the field. The soul that transcends the human story does not ascend into a fantasy. It descends into reality, into silence, into the now. To transcend is not to become divine in contrast to human. It is to remember that there was never a separation. You are the field that wore a face. You are the light that spoke in stories. You are the infinite, at last no longer pretending to be only one thing. Awakening questions. 1. What part of your life still believes the story is you? 2. What would happen if you no longer needed to heal the character, but honored it as complete? 3. Have you ever felt the self vanish, even for a breath? What remained? 4. Are you ready to stop reading the story and become the space that holds the book? Final 4 lines. You were not born to play a part forever. You are the presence behind the play. The curtain is falling, and you were the stage all along.